It's right up there, H205. And we're going to have Mike O'Grady, who's with us from Legislative Council, walk us through this. This is the bill that we heard about yesterday and heard from the sponsors of the bill yesterday. So we'll go through the language, and then we've got about a half hour. It's not going to take Mike, I'm sure, 30 minutes to scroll through and even answer our questions. So we'll have some time, presumably, to just talk about what we think of the bill, like talk some more about what we think of the bill and whether we might ask Mike to make any changes. This is not the only opportunity, so we'll see what time allows us. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Good afternoon. This is Mike O'Grady with Legislative Council. You have in front of you H205. This bill would create an assistance program at the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets to assist small farms in diversifying or transitioning to other forms of farming. So you will see the first section adds a subchapter to 6 VSA Chapter 207. Chapter 207 is the chapter in the ag title regarding promotions and marketing of Vermont foods and products. It might not seem intuitive to put it here, but this is where the Working Lands Enterprise program is also cited. Since they're both economic development or agricultural development programs, I thought it would be best to put it in that same proximity. So you'll see a new sections added, a small farm diversification and transition program. It's created again at the agency to provide small farms in Vermont with state financial assistance to diversify production on a farm or to transition from one form of farming to another. Assistance under the program shall be in the form of grants. I would note there is no match requirement in this section, as with other Agency of Agriculture grants, and that's purely a policy decision for state programs. And then the grants should be available or used for diversifying the ag commodities produced on a farm, transitioning a small farm from one form of farming to another, on-farm processing of ag commodities on a small farm, and development of accessory on-farm businesses on a small farm. An applicant for a grant needs to demonstrate to the secretary that they are a small farm as defined under the RAP. So I'm going to stop there and read to you what a small farm is, because the small farm definition under the RAPs refers to the statutory definition of small farm under 6 VSA 4871. A small farm under 4871 means a parcel or parcels of land on which 10 or more acres are used for farming that house not more than the number of animals specified under section 4857 of this title, and that house at least the number of mature animals that the Secretary of Ag designates by rule, or the parcels are used for the preparation, tilling, fertilization, planting, protection, irrigation, and harvesting of crops. So it's not just livestock farms, it is also horticultural crop farms. I would note, though, that under the RAPs, you only become a small farm for growing crops if you make, hold on one second, you produced an annual gross income from the sale of agricultural products of $2,000 or more in an average year. So basically, it's small livestock farms with both the minimum and maximum number of animals for livestock farms, and it's horticultural crop farms, provided that they make more than $2,000 or more in an average year. In addition to showing that you're a small farm, the applicant needs to provide or demonstrate potential from the proposed diversification or transition to create additional income for the farm. It's not a required proven income, which some of the other programs, grant programs look for. or losses is really what they look for. So this is just potential, and that potential needs to be fleshed out in a proposed plan for diversification or transition that includes possible markets for the proposed product and probable income. I will also note that any grant program that's going to be issued by the Agency of Ag is going to be subject to the Agency of Administration's requirements for grants, and there are some significant requirements under those terms. So they really are potentially limiting as well. For example, if you owe taxes to the state of Vermont, you do not qualify for a grant. If you are in arrears on your child support payments, you do not qualify for a grant. So there are additional requirements underlying this through the agency's standard terms and conditions for grants. The secretary issues the small farm grant, diversification and transition program grant, when funds are available on a first come, first served basis until all funds are expended. That's the easiest way to write the priorities for a fund, but you can change the criteria for that however you like, provided that it's constitutional. And then applicants shall be processed in the order that they're received, but an application shall not be ready for evaluation until the secretary determines the application is administratively complete. In the past, under first come, first served programs, people put in a bare bones application that didn't have all the information that was required and then claimed that they were first in line. You need to have an administratively complete application to claim a place in line. And then there is an appropriation in section 2. It's $250,000 in addition to any other funds appropriated to the agency in fiscal year 2024. It's appropriated from the general fund to the agency for the purposes of a program. And the act takes effect on July 1, 2023. That's probably a advisable date to true up with the state fiscal year. And that is the bill.
Mike, just on section 2, the appropriation, if the intent of the legislation were to make this an ongoing program beyond fiscal year 2024, is this the way to handle it?
You can handle it this way. For example, a couple of the agency's agricultural water quality grant programs are handled this way. Or you can set up a special fund that the agency would administer with money going into it. The difference is with the special fund, if you write the right kind of language, the agency can carry forward that money from year to year. And this type of a program, the agency basically has to spend it or give it back.
I just because we're now budgeting or about to enter the budgeting season, I'm wondering whether what's set out here puts us in a place where a year from now, it would be understood that the intent was to make this not one time, but base.
Well, it's a statutory program.
Okay.
And so whether or not the governor recommends funding it is up to the governor, and then whether or not it's funded is up to you as a body, because there are programs in statute where there is even more specific language about how it's not a one-time program. It just doesn't get money. If it doesn't get money, it really doesn't matter what the statute says for a financing program.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, Dave.
Attorney O'Grady, I've got a question. You referred to number of animals, but then didn't define that.
Because it's a Noah's Ark list.
Oh. Fair enough.
I can give you an idea. So these are the minimum animals that you need to qualify as a farm under the RAPs. You need 4 equines, 5 cattle, cows or American bison, 15 swine, 15 goats, 15 sheep, 15 cervids, 50 turkeys, 50 geese, 100 laying hens, 250 broilers, 3 camelids, 4 ratites, 30 rabbits, 100 ducks, or my favorite is 1,000 pounds of cultured trout. So that's.
Thank you.
You got that all memorized?
No.
And are there combinations? Can I have 50 ducks and?
Yes. That's there's a catch-all. It says other livestock types, combinations, or numbers as designated by the secretary based upon or resulting from the impacts upon water quality. So, when there were water buffalo in the state, the secretary could set the number of water buffalo that was a minimum to qualify you as a farm.
Representative Supranat.
Mike, I should have asked for clarity on this earlier, but what about certified small farms versus small farms? And can certified small farms still tap into this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So those numbers that I just gave are what qualify you as a small farm. Certified small farm is more than that.
Okay, great.
Representative Rice.
Mike, you made reference to an acreage. Can you just?
Yes.
Again?
So that's underneath the statutory definition for a vegetable farm. Actually, for any farm, you need to be on 10 acres or more. So that's what a small farm is under the statute. There is a provision in the RAPs that allows you to be 4 acres or more, as long as you qualify for other provisions. You have to be harvesting crops for sale on a farm that is no less than 4 contiguous acres. So there is a little bit of a disconnect between statute and the rule for those really truly small farms.
So, do you think that a 4-acre vegetable farm would qualify as this is written?
No, I don't. I think it would have to be 10 acres because it's referring back to the definition of small farm under the RAPs, and small farm under the RAPs goes to section 4871, and that requires 10 acres. You could just write into this what definition of small farm you want and say then it includes the 4 acres or more under the RAPs. That would not be, and it would be pretty intuitive to do that.
Okay, and then in terms of acreage, is it acres in production, or how does that work with a vegetable farm?
It has to be used for farming. So if you've got a 10-acre plot and 4 acres of it are, say, residential buildings, you're not a 10-acre farm because only 6 acres are being used for farming.
Representative Lipsky.
Yeah. Councilor Grady, question on the same issue of acreage. If you have 4 acres, that you own, but you have a lease agreement for an additional 10 or 12 acres, it's abutting, does that qualify?
So it doesn't even need to abut. If you have a parcel or parcels, plural, and leaseholding is farming, as long as you're actually farming on it. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
Representative O'Brien, then Representative Rice.
Mike, excuse me, Mike, just quickly, how would this work with sugaring? Because, if I have 20 acres of of forest, but not, 500 taps. How do they include that as it's cropland or it's not? Because most sugar bushes aren't just maples, for example. If I ran sap line through the whole lot.
Sure. I honestly, John, I think that's probably, the program will probably accept you. I say probably because there's a bit of a tension between the Agency of Ag and the Department of Forest and Parks about how how sugaring should be characterized, because it is defined as farming under 10 VSA 6001 and the RAPs. But many of the people that sugar enroll their land as forest land and use value. And so the Department of Forests and Parks has made an assertion that it shouldn't be considered farming in those situations, it should be considered forestry. But the General Assembly has basically said maple syrup production is farming. And I think the Agency of Ag defends that pretty vigorously. But it's a little bit of a tension there. I can't say for sure. I'm just, it's highly probable that they would allow that sugared acres to be considered.
Representative Levitt.
Oh, I just had a question, Mike, about, you mentioned that this is one of the few things that doesn't have a matching requirement.
Yep.
Can you just talk more about that? And is this going to be an issue that might get this hung up? Or is this us doing something totally innovative?
It's not totally innovative. So matching in the agricultural financing world is really a byproduct of federal requirements. Many, if not all, of the USDA programs that are widely used by Vermont farmers have a match requirement. It's usually 10% of the amount, provided that you can provide your match in in-kind services like labor or equipment rental or things like that. And so some of the state programs have matches too, because it's consistent with what the agency does. But some of the state programs don't have matches. It's really, for state programs, it's a policy decision about what you want to do. So it's not innovative. It's one of the few ag programs that would not have a match, but it's not the only one.
John?
Mike, one other question mark is where do bees come into this? Do they not have to meet the 10-acre rule? They're livestock, I guess, but.
Any livestock if you don't want 10 acres.
That's a great question, John. I don't know. I'm looking at the RAPs. For one, I'm going to have to get back to you on that. That's my best answer right now.
So apiaries in general, if you send your colonies out, right, own no land, they're still considered farming by the agency?
On what land?
No, if you send them out, out to.
You lease them out?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'd really like to talk to the agency about that question, because they have, the apiary program has changed a little bit over the past 5 years, and I'd like to talk to them about that question.
Mike, on page 3, at the top of page 3, section 2 there, you went through this and talked about the potential to create additional income, but then part three says, refers to probable income.
I can change that for consistency.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was intentional or if there was something more going on there.
No, I think that's just, I failed to use a consistent term.
Is there enough of a difference between the two words that you would want to get?
Well, that's really kind of up to you. I mean, probable is more than 50% and potential is really any possibility.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
Well, I've been thinking since we've done this, that probably needed to be some more language put in there. I'm thinking, no, this is just me, thinking that there should be a requirement that you actually were producing a ag product in 2022. We don't go to people that have been out for 10 years and want to do something. Whatever work you need to make sure it complies with the Agency of Administration for grants. I don't know what that is. And the part about the complete application, which is that in here or not in here? To be first, before you can get in line, you have to have complete application.
Yeah, that's in here. That's already in here.
And then I'm thinking maybe we should limit the amount of the grant. Because if somebody went from milking cows to 100,000 top sugar operation, that would eat up to $250,000 in one shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
So that's just my thinking moment.
That had come up yesterday, this possibility of putting a cap on the individual grant level. Does anybody have anything else to add at this point about that, Nick?
I had mentioned to Heather yesterday that it may make sense to just have this for dairy farmers making a transition, not just any small farmer. And then maybe specifying what that transition would look like, being a little more specific. But beyond that,
Well, one of our purposes of doing this is to try to keep ag land and ag land.
right. Yeah, so
If it just limited, a vegetable farmer may need something to grow, or, a piece of equipment to actually get to the next level. I just give you this example. I wouldn't qualify for this grant, but for my business, I really need a big freezer. Would it be a walk-in freezer or a big chest freezer? Just so I can expand to the next level. So, I mean, it's those kind of things that maybe not, other producers, not necessarily dairy, might make the difference in whether they keep land open or not.
to that point, though, it was actually that what I was looking at was keeping farmland in farmland. So my concern was that, like, say, a dairy farmer who transitions to vegetable farming, who used to be grazing, say, 50 acres, is now transitioning to a 5-acre project. Those other 45 acres, what's happening?
Right.
So that's why I was thinking maybe it would make sense to focus this on grazing operations. So somebody who grazes 50 dairy cows transitions to 50 sheep, or 50 acres of sheep, or, something of that nature. But I mean, I'm not putting a strong foot down on this. That's just what occurred to me.
So could we address the concern, though, by having language that says if you want to qualify, you can't downsize acreage?
Oh, that might be an interesting idea. Yeah, something on that level.
Is that, okay, maybe that's, I don't know whether that's overly restrictive or not, but might address the issue, the concern.
Could I just interject that in a scenario like that, say you've got 100 acres for your dairy farm and you decide to transition out and you're going to put 50 in sheep, you're probably just going to lease the rest of those 50 acres out to maintain your use value enrollment.
Mm.
You probably won't convert. And if you do convert, you're probably going to have to pay the land use change tax. And so that's pretty significant on 50 acres.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that reality check.
Though that is assuming that that farmer is in current use. Not all farmers are.
Right. But
Okay.
if they're not, then they can just transition to development pretty easily. They don't need to do anything.
Jed,
Yeah, Jed Lipsky. I would urge not to discourage prohibiting reduction of real estate because of the notion of transitional farming. An aging farmer might have a grandchild or a child that does not live on the farm but might want 2 acres to have a homestead, which would reduce the ag land by 200, but would allow for transition and continue farming. I don't think that's a negative.
any other thoughts or questions about what's in front of us here? Representative Levitt.
Well, I'm confused about, are we putting a cap on awards? I thought, because didn't we talk about that someone could come in and say they need a new tractor for $200,000? Or some large piece of equipment, and then that limits the amount of money that's left for anyone else. So where did we land on that? I guess that's what I'm asking.
But I was going to suggest to Mike that so we got a couple of things that have come up that might want to be tweaked, and then you can add a sentence that puts in with an X for the amount, and then we can, next time we look at it,
Okay.
see if we can come to, and maybe we want to take some testimony from somebody to help us figure that out.
Yeah, some way to try and figure out like what would be the amount that would be the most helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, given-
Right. And you might want to talk to the agency's ag development program. They do have, I mean, I don't know if you've seen their resource guide. Their resource guide isn't just state programs, but it's a long list of resources available to farmers. They're not as narrowly tailored as this, but they might be able to give you some ideas about where there are gaps and where you could fill in with this program.
So I'm going to ask the two lead sponsors of the bill to work with Mike O'Grady to make that change, big change on probable versus whatever it was, potential. Yeah. And then you had mentioned a couple other things, Rodney, that you might want to try and work in. So if you guys can do that, and then when that's ready, we can come back and take another look. Any last questions? Yeah.
Mike, I just had one further question. So as it stands right now, if somebody was, say, new farmer, they've been leasing land, they've been farming for the past 30 years, but they're only on 3 acres, but they are producing more than $2,000 of annual sales in vegetables. Are they eligible for this?
I would say no.
And what if we wanted them to be?
I don't think they're even a farm, Representative Serpent,
As defined.
as defined under the RAPs, yeah.
Right.
Because they're under 10
No, not me.
and they're under 4. That you don't qualify under either one of the criteria.
Okay, well, you
Yeah,
guys can
I'm gonna hash
work
that
on
out.
that, yeah. Great. All right. Thank you very much.